Real distance.
Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here. Let's get it Star Wars. Let's get it Star Wars in here.
A small rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio,
your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times. Star Wars #1.
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
You know, we were just talking about some of the comments that we saw going into our live stream this past weekend on the heels of the Disney Plus Day announcements. And yeah, the announcements weren't necessarily as bountiful as we thought they might be, and as the rumors were suggesting they would be. But we were like, hey guys, how are you going to do a live stream about this? There was no news. 2 hours later, we could still be talking about it. Come on, guys. You know who you're dealing with here. This is Rebel Force Radio. We've made a career the last 15 years out of talking about Star Wars. We were podcasting about Star Wars. Think about this. We started our podcast adventures right at the time when the prequel trilogy was ending. There was no Disney acquisition. There was no sequel trilogy. All we knew was that there was going to be an animated series. That's what we knew. There's going to be an animated series. And I think George was still talking about, we don't have a network yet. We haven't sold it yet. We don't know what it's going to end up. Like George was talking like it was going to be one of his one of those indie films that no one was ever going to see. Remember when he retired and he said he was going to make movies that no one was ever going to see? That's kind of what he was talking about. But then, of course, that ended up being the Clone Wars. And anyway, my point being is that we have podcasted about less in our career, careers. We had a good time. So if you haven't caught the live stream, make sure you check it out. A good time with a lot of Patreon supporters calling in and breaking down what we did see, which we saw some just killer concept art for the Kenobi series that I think really answers and confirms some things that we've been speculating about over the last couple of years. And then the Boba Fett mini doc, we got to see George back on the back porch. I mean, that whole idea of George, that image of George on the back porch is like something that we would have talked about 10 years ago. Hey, someday George is going to be in his rocker on the back porch. Yeah. I'll tell you someone who is not in a rocker or on his back porch right now, but he's here joining us right now, as always. My good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, Jason, I was a little surprised by some of the correspondence we were receiving prior to recording our Disney Plus Day after show. And people were saying, like, well, you're probably going to have to call the show off. I bet you wish you didn't announce that live show. Off. Or how about my favorite was like, you guys got nothing to talk about. And I got news for you, folks. If they had just given us the Kenobi art without even a video, that would have been a whole show right there. Mm-hmm. But not only did we get the Kenobi art, we got the book of Boba Fett. Or I'm sorry, it wasn't the book of Boba Fett, but it was a documentary about Boba Fett. And that's fodder for conversation as well, along with your great calls. It's always awesome to talk Star Wars. And I'm not trying to cover up the fact that Disney Plus Day was a disappointment for Star Wars fans, because it was. I mean, we all felt a little underfulfilled, I should say, especially when you compared it to the big Disney Investor Day call last year. And that was the big deal. We're still riding that wave.
Right.
And I think we expected some reinforcements to show up. And I think I was very surprised that there was at least nothing about Andor. And
very conspicuous by its absence, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm still predicting, despite the fact that we didn't get the trailer, I'm still predicting a May 4th, 2022 debut for the Kenobi series, and we'll definitely get a trailer before then. So that's something to look forward to.
So you think we'll see Kenobi before we see Andor?
Yes.
For sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Andor is said to be fourth quarter.
Oh, that's right.
Fall 2021.
Right. And that was not part of the Disney Plus Day announcement. That was a week prior on a call where that quarter 4 was announced with respect to Andor. But what's interesting is Andor got a jump on Kenobi in terms of production. They were in front of cameras months before.
Well, that's going to be a 12 episode run. Andor. So that's going to take us all the way from the beginning of the school year into the holiday season. And
right
my prediction
Mando
is that,
season 3.
Right. My prediction is Mando season 3 will drop in the holidays, much like the book of Boba Fett is this year.
Yeah.
I could be off, but I mean, those are just simple predictions.
Well, we got a heck of a show for you this week. We've got a little bit more detail as to why Patty Jenkins and her Rogue Squadron film isn't happening. We talked a lot about that in the last week's episode, and as we assumed, we're going to get more info out of Disney Plus Day with respect to a feature film. But we've got a few more details about that. Also, we're going to celebrate Life Day. It's been 43 years, which is just incredible to think of. 43 years since the Star Wars Holiday Special. And it has sort of new relevance, Jim, because George made one of his first kind of public references to the Holiday Special in that Boba Fett under the helmet documentary, where he's very quick to say, "Oh, we had nothing to do with it." Of course, we had nothing to do with it. I think that was his words. But he threw in the Boba Fett character, he acts as though he sort of gave that as a bone, threw that as a bone to the Holiday Special. Well, we got this guy.
Yeah. Well, he did. And George was buried in work in the years between Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back. People think that he was consumed by Empire Strikes Back, but that's not 100% true. He was also devoting some of his time to the More American Graffiti film, which was the sequel to American Graffiti. That was not very well received, nor did it do anything at the box office. But it was something that George was committed to doing. Mm-hmm. He was on the hook to do it because of the deal he had cut with who handled American Graffiti?
Was that Universal?
Paramount? Universal. You're right. Yeah. You're right. Mm-hmm. Of course, Universal. And so he was on the hook for that. So he had a lot of oars in the fire at that time, and the Holiday Special just kind of got by him, and it taught George a solid lesson. Don't let anybody else mess around with Star Wars. And he remembered that for the next 3 decades. And then he slipped up again and sold it to Disney.
I was going to say, speaking of which, we'll also have coming up in the program, our analysis on an opinion piece that is really, I think, shaken up a lot of Star Wars fans by a fellow, Matt Bologna, who I honestly had not heard of Matt. After this article came out, I started doing a little research on him and see that he has, some real credibility. But he wrote a piece about Star Wars, and the headline is "It's time to take Star Wars movies away from Kathy Kennedy." So we're going to break that story down. And again, this really is an opinion piece. But he lays out the facts as somebody who is an entertainment lawyer and has been in the entertainment business for a long time.
And he does break some news in it as well. It's more than just opinion. He does drop in some breaking news tidbits into his piece.
Yeah.
So we'll tear it all apart.
Yep, we sure will. But before we do that, let's check in with a little listener mail. How about that?
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message, Arthur, the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with
Play
him.
it back.
It's a trick. Send no reply.
That just makes me laugh. Play back the entire message. All right. So first up, we've got Jeremy. Jeremy checking in with us here.
Hey, Jason and Jimmy. I have been wanting you guys to talk about this for a while, and on the heels of your Qui-Gon discussion, this can be your 4th And final follow-up. It's more of a spin-off question. I've always wondered about the Force ghosts because they really make it sound like Obi-Wan has to do training to learn how to become a Force ghost, and it's like this big deal. And Anakin obviously knows nothing about it because when Obi-Wan disappears, Darth Vader is completely confused. But then when Vader/Anakin dies at the end of the Return of the Jedi, he immediately becomes a Force ghost. So what's going on with that? How does Anakin become a Force ghost so quickly? And if, Qui-Gon doesn't have the training, but he's able to kind of figure it out in death, then what's the need for all the training before death? I don't know. It just kind of, I don't really need to have it all explained because it'll probably, like in a movie, because it probably won't suffice. But I don't know. It's just interesting to think about how Obi-Wan and Yoda have to do all this training to become Force ghosts, but Qui-Gon seemed to kind of figure it out without having that training, and Anakin really seemed to figure it out without having that training. So I'd love to hear you guys talk about that. All right, thanks.
Great question. Really good question. Thanks, Jeremy. That's a good one. I have a thought. I have a theory. I think that after Vader slayed, is that the word? Slayed Obi-Wan Kenobi? Ben Kenobi?
Slew.
I think after he tried to have him, HALVE, and then stepped on the robe. He stepped on the robe because he thought there was like magic tricks here, like something was going on. My headcanon, I love that term. That's a Jimmy Mack term. Headcanon. My headcanon says that he became obsessed with how that happened. He'd never seen anything like that before. And that, yes, he may have been studying it from a dark side point of view. And I would argue that he probably never would have made it to that level with that point of view. But once he sacrificed himself for his son and came back to the light and embraced the light, then I think all of everything just clicked and he was able to transcend in that way. That would be my guess if I had to make a guess.
Okay, so I guess the question on the table right now is, how did Anakin learn to return as a Force spirit without any training? All right.
Right.
Well, we certainly know that Anakin and Palpatine together were trying to crack the code of immortality.
Yeah.
Which the Emperor claimed that it was a mystery that was solved by Darth Plagueis. But Darth Plagueis didn't share all this information with the Emperor. And so Palpatine believed that with the combined power of the two Sith Lords, Palpatine, already super powerful, and Anakin, who has more midichlorians than anyone ever, that the two of them would be able to crack the code together. But that's a dark side approach. And from what we know, the key to immortality in the Star Wars universe is only found via the light side of the Force. So you have Anakin Skywalker working with the Dark Lord, using dark science to try to uncrack this code. And at the same time, Anakin still has some light side burning inside of him. Even if he doesn't realize it, Luke is the one who's able to bring that out of him. But during the period between the prequels and the original trilogy, that's prime time. That's when Vader and Palpatine should be working on trying to discover the key to immortality. And none of this ever gets looked at in any of the comic books or novels. They never dive deep into that. And it's
You're
all
right, they
there.
don't. Yeah, you're right,
No,
they don't.
It's all right there. You never have Palpatine and Vader convene and try to use their dark side magic and whatever skills they have to uncover the
the most
to everlasting life.
The most that we ever examine, or that we're ever privy to any examination of what that process is like, is in the Plagueis novel, where and that you got like them turning themselves into spirits and running throughout the galaxy, and it's wild. Like it's wild stuff going on in that novel. And there's hints that maybe he touched or didn't touch Anakin's mother.
Oh yeah. That's
it
a whole
hints at
nother.
that. Right.
That's a whole nother.
But like what I mean
can
is
of
like all
worms.
this like out of body stuff going on in that novel. Yeah. But you're right. There's nothing documented in the expanded universe, old or new, about Palpatine and Anakin. And maybe, Jim, the answer is that was just bait that Palpatine was laying out there for Anakin, and he never came through and never, or do you think they did try to figure it out?
No, I think that Palpatine is telling Anakin the truth about he was using Padme as the bait.
Mm-hmm.
He thought Anakin would reveal the true potential of his power if he were able to save Padme from dying.
Right.
And Anakin had already pledged himself to discover the trick to stop people from dying. He'd already pledged himself to that. Yeah. So everything was working out perfectly for Palpatine, because if Anakin could discover the way to stop Padme from dying, then those same skills, dark arts, whatever you want to say, touching the Force, that could be applied to yourself maybe, and you could save yourself from dying. And I think that's what Palpatine was chasing.
Oh, yes. He wasn't content with being the as George called him, the emperor of the universe. He wanted to be the emperor of the universe forever.
Yes. He was laying down the groundwork for the throne to carry him for all time.
Yes.
So that's one reason why I think Anakin returned at the end of Return of the Jedi. The other one is very simple and requires no explanation whatsoever. He is the chosen one. And as a result of that, having more midichlorians than any other Jedi, he has natural skills. He has a natural connection with the Force, probably more profound than any other Force user that ever existed. And with that connection to the Force comes natural abilities, much like throwing a dog into the water. If dog's never been in the water before, dog learns how to swim really fast. No lessons, no nothing. Dog just relies on instinct. And I believe Anakin Skywalker could have been so strong in the Force that there was an instinctual connection, which made the ability to return after death possible. Now, a lot of people say Anakin didn't fade when he died, Anakin/Vader, but that could be debated because we only see the armor and the helmet.
I was just going to say, how do we know? How do we know? Because he was more machine than man. All of his appendages were, well, most of his, 3 out of 4 were prosthetic. And we don't know about that 4th. That could have been lost in a battle, after what we see on Mustafar. Who knows? Maybe the Kenobi series will, maybe Kenobi will get another arm to add to his collection.
Yeah, right.
We don't know.
More machine now than man.
Because I
twisted and evil. Yeah, because of me.
Right.
Because of my kick-ass saber skills.
Right.
You don't want to mess with me when I got the high ground.
And I know people will say, "Oh, well, yes, you can always use his high midichlorian count as as a crutch." But it's got to be used for something.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm just saying, if we're going to look at the facts about this character, that's a pretty important fact not to overlook. Is that he is pulling off things that people with the connection to the Force had never dreamed of before.
Boy, and
that's
now,
how he becomes so powerful.
And now, of course, and we're not going to talk about it here. We've laid a lot of track behind us about what the chosen one is and all of that. But now all of a sudden, I'm getting those images of Darth Maul dying in the arms of Ben Kenobi on Tatooine, saying, "Is it true? Is he the chosen one?" He is. And
yes.
The assumption is that he's not talking about, I shouldn't say the assumption, but an assumption is that he's not talking about Anakin there. That he's talking about Luke. And
maybe a lot of younger fans don't understand this as much as older fans do, but the idea that Vader would be the chosen one and Luke not, after what he achieves in the original trilogy, that was kind of a strange pill to swallow for old time fans.
Yeah, I guess.
Wait a second, are you? It's not Luke. Luke's the one who saves the universe, right? He blows up the first Death Star. He's the last Jedi. He has. He was involved in the duel that destroyed the Emperor and Vader, for that matter, and he lived to survive. And he's not the chosen one. So that was kind of hard to wrap our heads around until the entire prequel trilogy was revealed to us. And then we're like, oh, okay, we get it now. It's all about Darth. Okay. That's the other thing younger fans might not recognize, is that Star Wars was all about Luke until the prequels.
George has subtitled it, those 6 films, The Tragedy of Anakin Skywalker. Shakespearean.
Yeah, well, very much so. Now, as far as Qui-Gon Jinn, there was a question raised by Jeremy on the voicemail about his lack of training. But according to canon, Qui-Gon Jinn was trained by a shaman of the wills, but his training was incomplete. That's why he could only return as a voice and not full-on Qui-Gon with the hair and the beard and all that stuff. So that's why Qui-Gon never reappears as a Force spirit. I think that's canon. I think most people accept that as canon, even though it comes from deleted scenes. And,
but if it's in deleted scenes, then it was part of the script, and that script had to have been run through George Lucas. So yes, I think it's canon. Absolutely canon.
Yes. And he reveals information to Yoda too about some of that training when Yoda has the vision in season 6 of the Clone Wars. And we played a highlight clip of that a couple weeks ago. So that's where Qui-Gon's connection comes. Qui-Gon passes on his information to Yoda and Obi-Wan, and that's how they're able to return as Force spirits. Anakin's the chosen one. That's how he's able to return. Also, he may have had some experience dabbling in the on the other side of the coin, the dark side of the coin. That may have eased his return. And then, of course, Luke and Leia return as Force spirits.
Yes.
And they are the offspring of the chosen one. So the dominoes fall in the right direction.
Sure. And I would imagine that once, Luke is visited by the Jedi spirits of Obi-Wan, Yoda, and his father, Anakin Skywalker. So I'm assuming that piece of training became pretty standard in the Skywalker, council or the Skywalker Academy or whatever it is of Jedi, that even though that was considered very advanced. I think that what Qui-Gon shows is that it's not so much that it's super advanced, it's just another way of looking at the Force. It's a different level of understanding, the living Force and all of that. But boy, we could do a whole show on that. But anyway, thanks for the voicemail, Jeremy. Appreciate it. If you'd like to leave a voicemail, we would love to hear from you. That number is available 24/7, 708-320-1737. That's 708-320-1RFR.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
All right, sorry to burst your bubble, but if you're out there just clamoring for a Chloe Zhao Star Wars movie, as we talked about last week, as rumors were starting up about such a thing, there was talk. Chloe Zhao, what's the name of that Marvel movie? The Eternals.
You got it. Yeah,
The Eternals. I couldn't remember if it was Eternals or Externals. I don't know. But it came out and it had mixed reviews. from both critics and fans alike. So it's 50-50. But there were enough people that liked it apparently to kind of give way to some of these rumors of Chloe Zhao maybe taking the helm of Kevin Feige's yet to be announced officially or determined Star Wars movie. But we're hearing that, what is this? The Hollywood Reporter says, nope, not happening. Not happening.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it doesn't surprise us. And as I warned everyone last week, stuff was coming from sources that are questionable to say the least. And I saw a lot of fast activity after this Hollywood Reporter column was published. I saw a lot of fast activity on social media accounts deleting certain tweets. Oh, I see you guys.
Oh,
I see you doing it. I see what you're up to. Deleting tweets. Come on. Yeah. Really, it's best if you don't really give any kind of attention to these bloggers and these websites. It's like, who are these people? You have to go with the big time trades, reputable big time trades. And the Hollywood Reporter is one of them. Variety is another. And when the Hollywood Reporter states that their sources insist, no, Chloe Zhao is not directing Kevin Feige's Star Wars movie or any Star Wars movie, you could take that to the bank. You could take that to the bank before some blog that has the name Robot in its title states any rumor about anything. And I'm not saying that there was a website with Robot who was spreading this rumor, but our sources tell us that Chloe Zhao and Kevin Feige had they weren't too compatible working on Eternals, and there was some friction. Nothing bad, or there's no animus. There's no hatred between the two. They just didn't really get along like a well-oiled machine making this film. There was legitimate creative differences. So, and creative differences is a word.
Well, I was going to say, you really emphasized, you really emphasized legitimate creative differences.
Yes, because creative differences are coming up here as we continue our conversation, but no Chloe Zhao.
There are, when you work in the entertainment business at any level, there are two phrases that you become very familiar with. One is creative differences. The other is scheduling conflicts. So those two.
Yeah. And the third is hospitalized for exhaustion. Which can be interpreted in so many different ways.
Many ways. Well, what are you exhausted from? Well, that's that's so true. But yeah, agree. So no Chloe Zhao movie. Well, let's get to sort of the meat of this week's news segment. Jim, this was a story. Well, I shouldn't say a story. This was a piece that was written by Matt Maloney. We talked about this at the top of the show. And so Matt is a former entertainment lawyer. He is editorial director of the former editorial director of the Hollywood Reporter. And he has a sort of an email newsletter that he sends out on Thursdays and Sundays. It's part of, I guess it's Puck. Puck is the name of the media company that covers the entertainment business. So he's a seasoned guy. He's been around the business for a long time, and he's got this article up. It's time to take Star Wars movies away from Kathy Kennedy. And it seems as though the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron film and putting that on ice is sort of, I don't know if it was the last straw, but it was certainly a last straw. And Matt finally comes out, sends out, publishes this piece that says, it's time to just take these movies away from her. She's a disaster, at least when it comes to the creative process. So a lot of, and you said there was some news that dropped in this.
Well, yeah, specifically, the news that, creative differences, true. But what we understand is that she had run into some problems with Lucasfilm executives with the script.
We're talking about
And
Patty
she-
Jenkins having problems
Yes.
with, Lucasfilm executives.
Specifically. Right. And it's interesting because as early as this past summer, Patty was saying that the script was just moving along smoothly and things were going great. She did an interview in July, and she spoke to, we just had it here a second. Yes, THR, they're back. And she gave an update on how the Rogue Squadron script was going. And she said she's been working on it. She'd been working on it for 6 months before the announcement was even made. So rewind to summer 2020 is when Patty started working in earnest on the Rogue Squadron script. We found out about it December 2020. And she says it's going amazing. Been working on it for 6 months before the announcement. So now she's a year deep into it when she's talking to THR. She says, we're finishing a script, crewing up, and it's all going wonderful. I'm so excited about the story and excited that we're the next chapter of Star Wars, which is such a responsibility and such an opportunity to really start some new things. Really exciting. Then THR asks her, what is the consulting process like with the Lucasfilm Brain Trust?
No story group. They don't say story group. They say brain trusts.
They do, but that's who is included in this. Okay.
Oh, you think so? I'm curious.
Oh, yeah.
Because John Favreau and Dave Filoni aren't running anything by the story group or the brain trusts.
They are. They are. Yeah, sure. But they have such autonomy because of who they are. And
Patty Jenkins doesn't?
Well, now hold on a second.
Yeah.
And also they have Filoni, who's their insider, who's already in there working on it.
He's one of them.
He's one of them. Dave Filoni is essentially a story group member. Of course, he has much bigger responsibilities with the company, creatively very hands-on, but he is a member of their story group. It might not say that on his business card, but he is. Okay, he is. And the story group primarily, they have to vet things as far as timeline.
Yeah.
You know, Patty Jenkins rolls in with the Rogue Squadron script, and who's in it? Yarel Poof. Okay. And they say, no, he can't be. You can't have Yarel Poof in this movie. It just doesn't work out with the time.
She's like, but I like Yariel Poof.
He's my favorite.
Right.
You can't even fit him in the cockpit. What are you thinking, crazy Patty? But that's primarily what they do. They're like proofreaders. But more than that, it depends on the project. With comic books, they're very hands-on. With novels, with animation, it's everywhere. But when you deal with these filmmakers like Patty Jenkins, she finds it to be an entirely different way of working. And
Stifling. Probably stifling, I would imagine.
She says it's an entirely different way of working. I'm on the phone with all of them and doing Zoom meetings with everybody involved in Star Wars all the time. I'm fairly free to do the story that we want to do, but you really need to know who's done what, who's doing what, where it goes, and how it works. She says it's a whole nother way of working that I'm getting up to speed on.
Okay.
And she's trying to get up to speed with the Lucasfilm way of working. And she's telling this to Hollywood Reporter. She's already been working on Star Wars for a year.
Right.
And she says she's trying to get herself up to speed on it. And that's a year later.
Yeah. So the bloom is not off the rose at this point. And Jim, this story is dated when? This interview that you're talking about, you're citing with Patty Jenkins, goes back to
June 24th, 2021, this past summer.
Wow. Okay.
Things are chugling. They're moving right along.
Yep.
But she is tipping her hand a little bit to the fact that she's not, you could tell in that quote, she's not entirely comfortable with this way of doing things.
Not used to having to run everything by committee. Even with something like
and it's
Wonder
not like
Woman.
she hasn't. Right. I was just thinking about the DC involvement.
Right.
I think they give their creatives a little bit more breathing space.
Well,
Star Wars is too precious.
You know what? Star Wars is precious, but the people in charge don't know why it is. That's the problem.
Well, that could be. According to the article we have here from Matt Belloni, he says, and I'm going to quote directly from his article, I talked to a few insiders this week that said the real culprit was the dreaded creative differences. Specifically, Jenkins couldn't agree on the script with Lucasfilm executives, including Senior VP Michelle Rejwan. So Michelle and Patty Jenkins are button heads. And so you think to yourself, well, who's Michelle Rejwan? Why is Patty Jenkins, this hot creative in Hollywood right now with a pretty decent track record, why is she butting heads with Michelle Rejwan? And from what I understand, Michelle Rejwan is the same one who was butting heads with J.J. Abrams over The Rise of Skywalker. So what the hell's going on over there? Now, listen, I'm not crapping all over Michelle. Trust me, because she has my respect. Early in her career, she was personal assistant to one Jeff Garland on Curb Your Enthusiasm, Jason.
Yes,
it's true.
Show that I've become very familiar with in the last couple of weeks.
I just discovered this today. Michelle was Jeff's assistant for 5 episodes in 2005. And she was also part of the Curb crew that season, 2005. She was a casting assistant on 1 episode. So, and she also did some casting work for The Office, going all the way back to the pilot. And she got her job at Lucasfilm via her connection with J.J. Abrams. She was an associate producer on Super 8, co-producer on Star Trek Into Darkness, and then she was a co-producer on The Force Awakens. And then that obviously exposed her to Lucasfilm. And then she and Kathleen Kennedy obviously hit it off very well. And the two of them are attached at the hip right now, with Michelle acting as executive producer on the Obi-Wan Kenobi series and on the Willow series.
Oh boy. Okay.
So, but I mean, so Michelle's in there and she is holding down the approach that Lucasfilm wants to take toward these projects. Meanwhile, Patty Jenkins is balking at it, leading to the point where Patty wasn't willing to dick around, according to the article we're talking about here.
No, she just left.
She wasn't willing to dick around. She has other projects, notably Wonder Woman 3 at Warner Brothers, where she enjoys more creative freedom.
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah. So this is starting to get to the heart of what the point that Matt Belloni is trying to make and does make in this story, which is they're creating an environment in which these people cannot necessarily function. These creatives cannot work with these shackles. Now, what are these
only
shackles?
one guy can. Only one guy could. Only one guy could. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ryan Johnson.
Yeah.
He was the only guy.
The straight A student, according to Lucasfilm, but he got all F's by most of the fans.
The straight A student. He was the only one truly smooth and successful collaboration they had.
Right.
Ryan Johnson, the only filmmaker in Hollywood stupid enough to go along with the Lucasfilm plan. And primarily because he knows nothing about Star Wars, much like the producers themselves. They awarded him with a trilogy before the release of The Last Jedi, a trilogy that's since been shelved. Let's talk about the other things that have been shelved or canceled, outright canceled, since Disney took over Lucasfilm. George Lucas projects, every single one of them that was in development, canned when Disney obtained ownership of Lucasfilm. Star Wars: The Clone Wars, canceled. Lucasfilm Animation, disbanded. Star Wars 1313, canceled. LucasArts, disbanded. Star Wars Saga in 3D, canceled. Star Wars Detours, canceled. Then the Disney era comes into play. And they can't even keep their own projects on track. Boba Fett film, canceled. Obi-Wan Kenobi film, canceled. Rogue One production shakeup between Edwards and Gilroy. Who directed that movie? I don't know. Solo directors, canned. Lord and Miller, comedy directors, brought in to make a Star Wars comedy. And so what do? They make a funny movie. They get fired for it. Given marching orders, much like Gareth Edwards with Rogue One. Gareth Edwards, go make a gritty war film based in the Star Wars universe. Gareth turns it in. Wait, it's not Star Warsy enough. Well, you told me to make a gritty war film. What do you want? Episode 9 director canned. Colin Trevorrow, gone. Throw his whole script away. Bring back in JJ, who was reluctant to work with us since day one. Let's bring him back for another run. Oh, Benioff and Weiss project shelved because they quit. They saw the writing on the wall. They quit. Rangers of the New Republic. Recent reports claim no longer in production. And we think primarily because of the Gina Carano catastrophe. And now Patty Jenkins' film shelved. So that's quite a bloody trail.
Yeah.
Left behind us as Kathleen Kennedy now signs up for 3 more years running the Star Wars franchise.
Yeah, I think there were 2 things that really sort of spurred Matt's article here. One being the Rogue One sort of cancellation. They won't call it that, of course. They'll call it a postponement. That being one. And then the other being Kathleen Kennedy's contract extension for 3 more years. So 3 more years of what? You look at the last 3 years. What have we had over the last 3 years? Well, we had a lackluster culmination of the entire Star Wars saga in The Last Skywalker, the Rise, The Last Skywalker, excuse me. No, The Rise of Skywalker. I can't even get the names of the damn movies straight. That's a sad commentary. You could wake me up out of a dead sleep and I'd be able to start reciting the lines, every line of dialogue in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back, but I get the names of these sequel trilogy films confused after Force Awakens. Why? Because they're meaningless. Rise of Skywalker, Last Jedi, it's all the same. Well, never mind. But point being that if we look at her extending her 3 years, we have to look at what she did for us the last 3 years. And the only thing she did that was reasonably good was get out of the way of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau. And Jim, there were rumors, I don't know how much credibility they have, but there were rumors that Kathleen Kennedy was not even welcome on the set of The Mandalorian.
Yeah. Again, reputable sources. So
sure.
I don't know about that. Unless somebody actually told me that. I find that very hard to believe.
It's hard to imagine, isn't it?
How do you tell the president of the studio you're not allowed on the set? That nobody gets away with that. And Favreau would not still be working on Star Wars if that was the case. I mean, and Dave Filoni's going to roll out the red carpet if Kathleen Kennedy gets out of the car the second she's there. I mean,
of course, it's his boss.
I find that absolutely lacking any sense of reality, that comment that Kathleen Kennedy was actually banned from the set of The Mandalorian. And I bet if you dig around online, you'll find pictures of her on the set of The Mandalorian. So,
well, George was there. Maybe it was the days that George was there.
Yeah, then she could sneak in. Nobody would notice.
Right. But anyway, so Matt, he does lay out this whole line of botched productions, as he calls them, botched productions and missed opportunities. He says they could be called from the curriculum for a film school seminar called franchise mismanagement. I mean, that's just an example of some of the wording that he's using here. He says, after allowing Rian Johnson to kill off Luke Skywalker and the villain Snoke in The Last Jedi, Kennedy and company freaked when superfans didn't like some of the creative deviations from the Star Wars canon. So rather than defend or extrapolate on his ideas for Episode 9, Lucasfilm just minimized or ignored them, which is absolutely true.
We saw what happened there. And right. How do you have confidence then in the franchise going forward when they present you? And this is a thing that really, the straw that broke the camel's back with me as far as the sequel trilogy was that announcement when they made the cast announcement for Episode 9 in summer 2018, I think it was summer. They made a cast announcement about The Rise of Skywalker, and they said, the final chapter of the Skywalker saga.
Mm-hmm.
And that was just so out of left field for me. And I don't know what people saw in that press release. All I saw was a white flag. A white flag.
Right.
And it's
right.
just
We
what
give
this
up.
guy's talking about. Rather than defend or extrapolate on the ideas, they just pulled the plug on the whole thing. And that gives me no confidence in the leadership then going forward. No confidence at all. Because as the article says, they freaked. And I get that sense.
Mm-hmm.
I get the sense there's a lot of freaking going on. Tony Gilroy, when hired to fix Rogue One, his exact quote about Lucasfilm was, they had no idea over there. They were a complete mess. I don't know if that's his exact quote. He said something like they had no idea what they were doing. And I'd like to, I got to give him the correct quote. So I'll look it up and bring it up in just a few minutes. And also I do want to point out that we know exactly now how Jeff Garland ended up in The Rise of Skywalker with the connection between.
By the way, did we ever see his character?
No, and he gets cut out of the whole thing.
Yeah, he got cut out. He even got scanned for an action figure. I remember we had a clip of him talking about that experience. He got scanned for an action figure for a character that never even made it into the film.
Right. But I mean, it's nice to know that connection, because I remember when he was announced as part of the cast, or he revealed that he had done a day of shooting or whatever.
Right, on a podcast, yeah.
Yeah, and we were trying to figure out, well, how the hell does Jeff Garland find his way into Star Wars? And now
it was
it's
a
just so
Goldberg's
easy.
connection, maybe. I thought that's what I thought.
Well, I was leaning more toward a J.J. Abrams connection, but it's Michelle. She brought them together. What Gilroy said about the Rogue One reshoots, it was a mess, is what he says. But there's a specific line he said about Lucasfilm. I've never been interested in Star Wars before. They were in so much trouble. They were in a swamp. Terrible, terrible trouble that all you could do was improve their position. So him just
you couldn't
showing
even
up
make it worse.
you're
there's no way you could make it worse than, I mean, wow, that's a dismal portrait.
Yeah. He's been very frank about his experience with Lucasfilm, and apparently he did such a great job they brought him back. You know, I mean, even though he has sort of peeled back some of the layers about the cluelessness of the direction of the franchise at that time, he still is brought back.
And by the way, the thing about him is he's no big Star Wars fan. He doesn't pretend to be. He doesn't, and
has no reverence.
No, none at all. None at all. He's just a great filmmaker, a good storyteller, and he knows how to get things done. That's what I think. And so it assumes, Jim, that some of the mechanics, there's the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. And it would assume that his involvement was not just in helping to improve, the spirit of what they were trying to do, but the actual literal process that they were undergoing in making a motion picture. How could Lucasfilm, of all companies, lose their way in just some of the basics of making a motion picture? That's staggering. Staggering.
Yeah. I think it's just a lot of the wrong voices at the table, making decisions based on whims and agendas. And I think that's what's really hurt Star Wars at the end of the day.
Yeah. People
working on Star Wars who simply don't understand anything about it.
Well, and this flavor of the month stuff, that's the thing that is, I think, really killing it, is that if you try to follow the whims, I think you just used that term. That's a great one. The whims of whatever it is, social media, whatever the flavor of the month is, whoever's offended or whoever's doing the offense, whichever. If you attempt to construct and set parameters of what your stories are going to say based on that, you're going to have a moving target. They're always moving that goalpost around. You never know what
Always.
footing that you're on. You never
Constantly. The whims control everything.
Right.
Qui-Gon Jinn was a shaman of the whims in new Star Wars films. But I mean, talk about this whole
Journal
idea
of the Whims.
of hiring the flavor of the month constantly and having it blow up in your face. J.J. Abrams, definitely a flavor of the month. They craved him so badly to get him on board with Star Wars.
Coming off of Star Trek.
JJ said, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And Kathleen says, who is Luke Skywalker? He goes, oh, well, that gives me something to think about. And she's like, I wonder why JJ never answered my question. Who is Luke Skywalker? I'm new around here.
She meant it literally. Everyone thinks it was some like metaphysical or some big grand question. No, she was like, so who's this Luke Skywalker?
Right. That's her magic. That's her magic. And how she keeps getting 3-year extensions. But I mean, the Boba Fett film, Josh Trank, hotshot young director, puts out Fantastic Four flop, gets fired. Rogue One production shakeup. Gareth Edwards, he did that Godzilla movie, and people were impressed with that. But I don't hold up any, the Lord and Miller thing. Colin Trevorrow, he does the big Jurassic Park movie. Seems perfect for Star Wars.
Yep.
Uh-oh, look out. It's Book of Henry. Fire Colin. Benioff and Weiss. Game of Thrones. Hottest thing on TV. Let's make a Star Wars Games of Thrones-esque series and give it to Benioff and Weiss. Uh-oh, last season of Game of Thrones sucked. Make it impossible for them to work with us. So they sign on with Netflix. Patty Jenkins, Ryan, just riding high, riding the wave.
Yeah.
She's doing great. Everything's great. Uh-oh. Wonder Woman 84 comes out last Christmas. Poorly received. Well, let's just make things a little difficult for Patty so she can't make a Star Wars film now.
Yeah. Yeah. Is it any wonder that we were just talking about Chloe Zhao not coming into the Star Wars family? I mean, there's going to get to a point where the best and brightest are not going to even want to entertain the idea of doing something Star Wars. And Matt talks about that in the story.
Give Rian Johnson a trilogy.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. The Last Jedi. The fans are pissed off. See you later, Ryan.
This is there's a lot of great stuff in here, but this one really hit home for me. He says, what really baffles the film executives that I talk to, the apparent lack of long-term planning or IP management for which Disney is typically the standard bearer. Kennedy made 5 films based on the most beloved property in the galaxy. And then, after 5 films, there was nowhere to go, no storylines to follow, no characters that demanded more, and no filmmakers whose next installment the fans were jonesing to see. Wow. Mic drop. Boom.
That's a mic drop right there. And that cuts to the heart of the problem. And it doesn't matter what the box office was for those 5 films. When it's all said and done, there's nowhere for the cinematic franchise to go.
Right.
And it's absolutely directionless right now. Unless, of course, there's truth to the rumors about a KOTOR film, Knights of the Old Republic. And that could be their plan B, which I believe that's the plan that was laid out for Benioff and Weiss. Knights of the Old Republic.
What
That's
about
the Star Wars Game of Thrones?
What about small screen jumping onto the big screen? Mandalorian, Ahsoka, etc.
That makes more sense.
I mean,
but with Disney Plus being such a priority for the boardroom at Disney, I think they want to keep as much strong content available on that platform until they reach Netflix numbers,
right?
Which is going much slower than predicted.
Now it is. It was going faster than
they came out of the gate pretty fast, but
very fast.
2021 was not a kind year to Disney Plus.
Yeah,
it definitely was not. Everything sort of plateaued and dipped. So I think they're going to be throwing full muscle behind Disney Plus, and I don't see The Mandalorian or any of those shows, Ahsoka, none of them going to the big screen for the next few years. I'm not saying never. God, no. I mean, they're so perfect to build film franchise around these characters in these situations. But I'll say 5 years until we even hear whispers about something like that happening. Disney Plus has to prove itself and continue to build a more solid foundation.
Yeah. Well, the leap from small screen to big screen, it's been done before and done successfully. Star Trek is a great example. The X-Files is a good example. Although it did much better on the small screen than the big screen. But that first X-Files movie was a big hit. But this is the first time I can think of a franchise going from big screen to small screen, back up to big screen. And honestly, perhaps I'm being a little bit too literal about this, because the size of the screen, though size does matter, the size of the screen in this context may not matter in the world where everything is content, which I have a love-hate relationship with that term. I love it. It's a helpful term in describing some of this stuff, but it's also such a generic term that it kind of gets away from the,
I kind of like
the
it.
art. But
I refer to myself as a content creator, so
sure.
I've actually embraced that. But I'm all content,
right? But you know what I'm saying? It does have a sting of unoriginality to it. But I guess the point being is that content is content is content. It doesn't matter what the distribution of it. It could be a direct to consumer through a streaming service. It could be in the theaters. It could be something that's released in, on home video purchase or what have you. So that doesn't really matter anymore. Though we're always going to give, a certain reverence to that which makes the big screen.
Oh yeah. That's the major leagues.
The major leagues. Yeah.
That's the major leagues. And I mean, stories are stories. They can be told in all different kind of ways. I mean, you could give me a multi-bajillion-dollar film and put it out on 5,000 screens across the country, or just smoke singles. However you provide the content, I'll be watching it. But
right.
It's, and I'll tell you, that Mandalorian trailer on a film screen, oh, so good. It was so good. I mean, not too far away, really, in my opinion, from achieving actual cinematic status. It's just, put a few more dollars into it and it's ready to rock.
Well, for those of you who are, maybe thinking that this guy, Matt Belloni, is just a Kathy Kennedy hater or whatever, this is not the case. He gives her props. He calls her. He says she's a producing legend. She's up there with the best who have ever done it. But Star Wars as a film franchise, and keep in mind, I know a bunch of you are yelling into your speakers right now or into your headphones saying, well, what about The Mandalorian? What about Book of Boba Fett that's coming? What about Kenobi? He says, but Star Wars as a film franchise is a disaster, and someone else should be given a chance to fix it.
Yeah, agreed.
I agree too.
I agree 1,000% with him. And he, reveals that the Jenkins thing was not due to scheduling, but actual creative differences. He also does reveal that Kathleen Kennedy has signed on for 3 more years.
Right.
That's what he says he's been hearing. Kennedy has a lot of good things happening at Lucasfilm, and I'm told she recently re-upped her deal for another 3 years. Folks, this guy's an entertainment lawyer. He's not just some random blogger.
Right. No, definitely not.
This guy is an entertainment lawyer, and he knows the ramifications.
Yeah, ran the editorial department at The Hollywood Reporter.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he has vetted this information. This is coming from legit sources, and this is the real deal. He knows what he's doing.
Jim, I haven't seen anything buried as deep as Kathleen Kennedy's contract extensions since I don't know what. If you remember right, her last contract extension was also just sort of buried in another news story. She's arguably one of the most high-profile film executives in the world. Was often rumored as a potential replacement for Bob Iger. There were rumors at one point that she only took the gig. Stayed with Lucasfilm after the Disney purchase because she thought she might be in line for the big chair.
Yeah, she might be going up that ladder.
Right. Needless to say, we're not. This is not a Kathleen Kennedy has no credibility as a filmmaking person. That's not the case. But when it comes to guiding that ship. It's just not. It seems to be a strength of hers. Put it that way.
At this point, it just doesn't feel like a good fit.
Right.
And I don't know if George Lucas would have brought her into Lucasfilm if he didn't believe he would be there to be able to shepherd her decisions, to be able to consult, to be able to offer his opinions and provide his guidance. Right. I think he always looked at it that Kathleen would be there, but George would be the safety net at all times. And once the sale to Disney happened, Kathleen Kennedy went along with all of that, moved over to a new corporation and had bosses now that, she probably had limited experience with. She had to cover her own ass and would do whatever those guys told her to do. And at that moment, rejecting George Lucas. And if George had seen that coming, if he thought there was a possibility that he would be squeezed out, I don't think he would have ever put Kathleen Kennedy in the position she's in today. But he did, and she's there, and she has that. George is still her safety net because she has the clout of being George Lucas's hand-picked appointee to run Lucasfilm upon his retirement. So she's got built-in clout that George grandfathered her. And unfortunately,
it's a very convenient label for her to have. George Lucas's hand-picked replacement or what have you. But I don't know that George, as you point out, was perhaps seeing her in what role she would play in a Disney-run Lucasfilm.
Right. And he obviously put her in place when he knew he was going to sell to Disney.
But he was going to be there.
He was going to be there. Yeah. He felt loyalty would keep him afloat. Loyalty from Kathy for all their years together working on films and their friendships and their mutual friendships, Frank Marshall, Steven Spielberg, and that whole circle. Yeah. These are guys who came up in the film industry together, worked together, and supported each other. And it's just that the corporate tidal wave of Disney was more than Kathleen Kennedy could ever withstand. And so she's going to go along with their program once George is out of the picture. And that's how George got squeezed out, essentially. I don't know. I could be full of crap. Kathleen could have been in there pounding her fist on Bob Iger's desk saying, "What are you, crazy? How can you get rid of the guy who created Star Wars?" I don't know. Maybe she did. I think that's unlikely, but maybe she did.
She's sitting there thinking, hey, George just got $4 billion.
Yeah.
That's the economy of some small countries.
Right. He says he wants to retire. Let him retire.
Let him retire. I've got the rest of my career and the rest of my life to worry about.
Right. Right.
Hard to argue with that.
Well, at the end of the day, you have to cover your own ass.
Yeah.
And especially in Hollywood, where we know backstabbing is practiced with the greatest of skill. Backstabbing in Hollywood. And so it's no surprise. And
it's an art form out there.
I don't think it's all a disaster, but the the film side of Star Wars
Yes.
is
That's what we're talking about here.
Star Wars as a film franchise is a total disaster at this point. And everyone knows it, but it just seems like now the media is starting to catch on.
Yeah,
They're just
right.
now starting to catch on. But again, they don't want to blow their early screeners or passes to premieres.
Oh, because it's not just about Lucasfilm; it's about the whole Disney.
It's about
empire.
everything.
All of that. Oh yeah, exactly. You want your 20th Century Fox screeners?
Yeah. And they use that. I mean, the studio does use that as a way to keep you in line.
Absolutely.
They use that to keep you in line. Yeah. You got to shill. And hopefully though, that this expose, well, not expose, but opinion piece will really provide some food for thought for a lot of mainstream journalists who are currently covering the Star Wars and Disney franchises on a whole. You know, some people say that it's because of the success of Marvel that Star Wars has become a lower priority for Disney. Maybe it was more of a Bob Iger pet for a while, but now it's just like Marvel is really handling the heavy lifting, and Star Wars, it's just important to keep Star Wars afloat at this point. You know, I don't think there's necessarily any falsehoods in thinking that way. That could be 1,000% true, but I wouldn't kid yourself. The Disney people and the guys who run that company, they understand the value of Star Wars, and I'd hate to see it just slip right through their fingers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to. Yeah, as a film franchise again.
Right.
I know you guys are all yelling, what about Mandalorian, Boba Fett, and all that. We love that stuff. That's great. These guys are hitting a home run with that stuff. But we got to fix the film franchise.
Yes.
That's the key to the success of Star Wars. And making it a relevant story
keys.
And franchise.
There are two keys: the films and the 3 3/4-inch action figure line.
Yes, that is absolutely true, Swake. All of which I keep in their original packaging.
All right, hey, Adam Driver, that's a name that you're probably familiar with. Of course, Kylo Ren and Ben Solo from the sequel trilogy. But he's been out of the limelight for a little while since we last saw him as I guess the last time we saw him was actually as Ben Solo in Star Wars.
No, Adam Driver's been in a ton of
stuff. He was in that play. He was in that play. He was in a big play on Broadway right before everything shut down.
Burn This.
Yeah, Burn This. But I mean it. I'm talking about Star Wars fans.
Like he's not gonna do nerdy stuff anymore.
No, he's not even going to Comic-Con. That's what this is. That's what this is all about.
Yeah, he learned his lesson. So he did appear recently on the BBC's Graham Norton show, and the subject came up about the first time he attended Comic-Con and how that first time will probably be his last time to attend Comic-Con.
You went to Comic-Con, which seemed... did you like that?
No. I didn't know I was not going to like it till... I didn't know the rules of a Comic-Con.
Okay.
I got in at a hotel at 2 in the morning, and I'm like, "What? Anything you need?" And I'm like, "No, I'm fine. Maybe tomorrow I'll go get a coffee." And they're like, "Oh, no, you can't get a coffee." I'm like, "Well... maybe I'll get a coffee in the hotel." They're like, "No, you can't get a coffee in the hotel. We have some masks in a bag if you want to put a mask on in a bag." And they had me like an option of an Iron Man mask or a Darth Vader mask.
To dress up?
No, if you want to go outside there, like just put a mask on so nobody knows who you are, because Star Wars was very, hadn't come out yet. The Force Awakens, the first one. And then I opened my window because I'd been in the room for 24 hours before this thing we're supposed to do. And then there was a band at the bottom of the building playing the Star Wars theme on repeat because we were all staying in a hotel. So it was scary.
Because you'd love that.
Yeah.
The cast will love this.
Then you show up and it's 2,000 people who are just very devoted. It's just a lot of energy. It's a lot of, as you can imagine.
Yeah. So only the once.
Only the once, and I saw that. I saw what it was. I mean, it's nice. I'm not anxious to go again.
Well, it's not a surprise. It's not a surprise. You know, throughout the whole sequel trilogy, in Adam Driver is a great veteran of the armed forces, and our understanding is that he has some collateral. I think there's some impact that whole experience had some impact on Adam Driver. He's not great in crowds. He's not great, and I think he is a private person, and I don't think he's an actor for the fame. I don't think he's one of those guys. I think he's an actor for a lot of different reasons. But my point being that this should come as no surprise to anyone that this is not a guy that's going to be lining up in conventions for the next 30 years, signing 8x10 Kylo Ren glossies. It's not happening. Not happening.
No, he's super focused on his career, and the integrity of his career itself is super focused.
Yeah.
Adam Driver comes off to me as a true artist when it comes to performance, and somebody who takes his performing extremely seriously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that it's all about the performance for him and his expression as an artist, as opposed to, you're right, Jason, being on the front cover of Us magazine or any crap like that, People magazine. He's more into the integrity of the performance.
And that's where I respect Adam Driver. You know, the issue that I would have, and you bring up, being on the cover of People magazine or something like that. The issue that I've had in the past with people who, say, decry being a part of these big blockbusters, but yet they're excited to be and glad to be on the covers of these magazines and these exposés and all this stuff. Adam Driver is consistent. I think that's what we're looking for, consistency. He doesn't want Comic-Con any more than he wants the cover of People magazine. He just wants to do his thing and be left alone and be an artist, be an actor, and contribute to that whole thing. Whereas others would be like, put me on People magazine, but I don't want to talk about doing those big Hollywood movies. I think it was Robert Downey Jr. that has done such a great job of exposing some of these folks and the hypocrisy of how they on the one side of their mouth are talking about how they don't want to be part of these big blockbusters and that it's selling out your craft, and on the other hand, they're doing everything they can off screen to stay in the public eye, So So I got to say, I respect Adam for his consistency.
And here's this guy, shows up at 2 a.m, his hotel room, and he just wants a cup of coffee. He's got like Tracy Canobio and Pete Vilmer standing there, and they pull a Darth Vader mask out of a bag and say, put this on before you go anywhere. And he's just like, you got to be kidding me. How come they didn't tell Adam this before he got there? How come he didn't know? Is he the type of guy who has like the assistant who comes in and says, okay, so next week you're going to be at the Star Wars panel at San Diego Comic-Con. You really can't leave your room or anything. They want to keep your presence there surprise, so everyone will be surprised. So you have to stay in your hotel room for 24 hours straight. And he's just sitting there. And he's like, he'll play Space Invaders on his phone or something. He's like, okay, what else? He's not even listening.
Yeah, right.
Well, but this story, it got the wheels churning in my head here. And I was like, I remember when Adam Driver was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2015. And I did sense a little bit of nervousness from him being there.
Oh.
So I pulled a clip from the Star Wars panel, and this is the only time Adam Driver spoke during the entire panel. And so this next minute 39 seconds will be everything Adam Driver did outside of his hotel room at San Diego Comic-Con 2015.
Adam, what can you tell us about your connection to the dark side? Can you tell us anything?
No.
Okay. Now, Donald, there is this sort of an unspoken tradition in the original Star Wars of bad guys being these sort of, let's call them humorless British types and kind of
Are you really moving
nasty
on to
fashion.
me? Are you moving on to me and you're letting him get away with
Well,
that?
I can't. He's not. There's nothing he can say. Yeah, that was it. That was
Come
it.
on,
That
you gotta
was,
say something. Adam, say something.
So, what do you want me to say?
Who are you?
That's a good question.
Yeah, see? He doesn't even...
Good question.
Can you tell us anything about you? Oh.
Oh, man.
I mean, what can I say? We didn't really have a lot of conversations about bad or evil, actually, when we were shooting it. It was more, what do you think is the difference between being bad and being right? I think, which is a huge difference. Someone who thinks they're bad is almost kind of like a selfish thing, and it's mostly about them and hurting somebody else, to get what they want. But thinking they're right is something different. That's almost more evil. A group of people who have decided that they're morally justified in behaving a certain way. And I think that's what we kind of approached it, and less like a bad person.
That's it.
So, yeah, that's it. That's all he did. Then back to the hotel room for you. No cups of coffee. Wear a Darth Vader mask. But Adam, you could sense all that nervousness about him, that nervous energy. And I was so surprised then when he appeared on Saturday Night Live at the end of the year, after The Force Awakens had come out, or it was probably early 2016. He was so funny and personable and likable and really in his element on a sketch comedy show. But you put him up in front of a crowd at San Diego Comic-Con, he's nervous and stuttering, does it uncertain about what he should do and what he should say. He would have been happy to get away with just that simple no answer at the beginning, and that's all he would have done. He was fine with that. But J.J. Abrams wouldn't let him off the hook at that moment. So, but listening back to that, and after seeing him on Saturday Night Live, I think I'm starting to understand his humor a little bit, and I think he was just trying to be funny there. But
yeah,
I don't know. He sounded a little nervous to me too.
Yeah. No, he's not. You definitely hire that guy for what he puts on the screen, not necessarily the heat that he creates off screen in interviews and things like that. That's not where he. That's
He's out
not
of his
where he
element.
lives. Yeah,
he's an actor to the core.
Yeah, he is.
And if you want to get to know the real Adam Driver, well, you should probably be a friend or family member, because that's probably the best you're going to get. I think he really holds his cards close to his chest as far as letting his personal and professional lives intersect. And that's just the thing I get from him. But we'll ask him next week as he appears on Rebel Force Radio. He's been, I wish. Wouldn't it be great if we had Adam Driver?
We're the only show that he goes on to.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys really get me.
You guys understand. Yeah. and yeah, we could force time with him even.
Oh yeah,
that would be a first. That would be a first for podcasting.
That'd be wild. And like he could be in the rain, and then I'd have a little water on my hand. To be
that just happened to me right now, and I think that came from you, Swank.
That happens between you and me all the time. This whole podcast is done as a forced time. The whole thing.
All the time.
All right, I'm looking at the rundown, and I see this this next headline about TikTok. And so TikTok, which I know nothing about other than, my daughter is talking about how all her friends are on it. And she's not on it. I'm not going to let her on. I don't know what it is. But apparently Disney and TikTok got together, and you can do text to speech with Star Wars characters.
Yeah, this is incredible. It's one of the greatest things that's ever happened to social media. And this all had to do with Disney Star Wars Plus Fan Day or whatever that thing was last week. They made the announcement that certain characters from Star Wars could be unlocked via the TikTok app, and you could use them in a text-to-speech fashion. The way you do it is you just type out something, a picture. You take a picture, and you want to post it to the TikTok, and you want to type a little. You want the picture to talk.
Okay.
So you just it provides some narration for a video. Even it doesn't have to be just a picture. If you want to provide a narration for a video, you can have you type in some text, and then the next thing you know, it's talking. And
really,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. So people have been doing this stuff with TikTok pretty much since its inception.
Really,
but this is the first time that recognizable voices are going to be used.
Because I remember what a big deal it was when you could use C-3PO as your GPS voice.
Well, yes, but that wasn't like programmable by the user.
You couldn't make 3PO say whatever you want. I mean,
But now we're getting into this realm of artificial intelligence and voices and all that stuff. I mean, it's just fascinating. So
have you kicked the tires on this? I mean, as an audio guy, I would imagine.
I did.
Now, we know, by the way, if you've been listening to this show over the last 15 years, you know that nothing motivates the adoption of new technology in Jimmy Mac's life like Star Wars. All right? Yeah. Laserdisc to VHS, VHS to DVD to Blu-ray to 4K. All Star Wars. Star Wars. So I would imagine that you probably never really looked twice at TikTok until there was this Star Wars voices.
This is true. Yes. I just downloaded the app today, as a matter of fact, and discovered how you unlock the C-3PO voice. And the way you do it is type out whatever your text is and then put the word droid in there at the end. And then the next thing you know is that the C-3PO option will become available to you on TikTok. Okay. And so you just then press the button to finalize your audio. Yeah. And you'll hear what this is the first thing I typed out. And I played it back. I recorded it so we can hear it back on the show. But here is C-3PO on TikTok saying whatever I want him to say.
Chut, Rebel Force Radio listeners and Star Wars fans everywhere. This is your source for the Force.
Huh?
Wow! Wow! That's amazing! I got to hear this one again.
Do it.
Chut, Rebel Force Radio listeners and Star Wars fans everywhere. This is your source for the Force.
Wow. Wow.
He wouldn't say rebel, though. He would say rebel.
Rebel?
Rebel.
That's odd that 3PO wouldn't say rebel. I mean, you'd think that would just roll off his...
it's such a Star Wars term.
Metal tongue.
I had to play around with it, and I typed out rebel, REHBULL. Rebel.
Well, I'd say you did it
Chut, Rebel Force Radio listeners and Star Wars fans everywhere. This is your source for the Force.
So you might, for some words you might have to try out more of a phonetic spelling, but C-3PO will pick up on that. I mean, obviously he's fluent in 6 million forms of communication.
Sure.
Simple text message he should be able to figure out. And then here's another example of something that I applied text-to-speech C-3PO voices.
Say it loud and say it proud. Leave Rebel Force Radio a review and make it good.
You like it?
That's incredible. You don't even need us anymore. What we're going to do, we're just going to type out the whole show and let 3PO, we're going to let Goldenrod just do the whole podcast. Imagine.
That's right. That's right. There's one more.
Wow. That's so good.
I am programmed in etiquette and protocol. I also am programmed with great knowledge. That is why I think Jason Swank is a little weenie.
The truth.
My God. First he calls me an Ewok because of my hairy arms.
That's true. That I remember that.
Yeah, now I'm a weenie. Let's hear that again.
I am programmed in etiquette and protocol. I also am programmed with great knowledge.
Great knowledge.
That is why I think Jason Swank is a little weenie.
Wow, and who wouldn't know more about little weenies than C-3PO? He certainly does.
So there are two other voices available currently. You can get Stormtrooper and Chewbacca. Yeah,
right, who's the Stormtrooper, though? Who is that? Was it Collins? Who's the Stormtrooper
That's
voice?
A good question.
We got to find out.
I'll figure that out for next week's show.
And Chewbacca, how do you even know what the hell he's saying?
Yeah, I know. But I think the deal is that you can maybe make the photo look like it's growling.
Oh,
like
gotcha.
Chewbacca,
Okay.
It's a picture of your grandma, and she's like, "Arr!"
I mean, that's clearly Anthony Daniels. I mean, there's no question. That's totally Tone Daniels.
That is the Tonester himself.
Wow, that's great.
So that's just great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Fun. So we'll be playing with that for years to come.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear some other voices. Like, who else would you like to hear? I'd like to hear Billy D. Lando. But we have our own
Billy D. Yeah, well,
we have our own. We have
true.
Puppet Lando, so we don't need that one. But Darth Vader would be fantastic.
Oh, Vader would be awesome.
Sample some James Earl Jones. I think that would make a lot of people really happy and excited. So we'll see where this goes. Maybe even Misa Jar Jar Binks. Maybe that'll be in there too.
This is Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force, with Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack. The galaxy is listening.
All right, folks, it's time to announce the winner of our big Cufflinks Star Wars giveaway. As you heard last week, we reviewed all the great Star Wars men's accessories and apparel available from cufflinks.com/Star Wars. And the folks at Cufflinks were so kind, they gave us some of their great Star Wars stuff to give away. So we asked you to leave a comment on our cufflinks.com review video that we posted to YouTube. And we placed them into the Rebel Force Radio hopper, and out popped the winning name chosen at random. It's RFR listener Christopher Sarisa. Congratulations, Christopher. Thank you so much for participating, and thank you everyone who watched our review video at youtube.com/Rebel Force Radio. And thank you, cufflinks.com, for a truly awesome giveaway.
Rebel Force Radio.
Hey, we got a little bit of a follow-up here by way of Star Wars and pop culture, so check this out.
Rebel Force Radio.
You've already made that Star Wars reference.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars parody! Was this last week we dropped I dropped a Randy Newman impression? Thinking about the Star Wars.
I think we had determined somehow that Star Wars, it would be an interesting approach if they took like a Toy Story approach, and at the end of one of the films, Andy gets called for dinner and he drops his Star Wars action figures, and we realize, oh my God, the entire Star Wars story is just a kid sitting on the floor in his room playing with toys. And
what you saw was just...
So then, that's how the movie ends. Cue the Randy Newman song.
Right.
Because if you're going to do a Star Wars Toy Story, there has to be a Randy Newman song at the end.
They were just toys.
See, and then Jason debuted. I believe that's a Rebel Force Radio podcast debut of Jason's Randy Newman impersonation.
Yeah. Amazing songwriter, by the way, just for the record. Incredible songwriter, an incredible composer. I mean, he wrote the score for The Natural, the Robert Redford baseball film. I mean, come on. This guy's a legend.
He's a legendary talent. Randy Newman. Don't want no short people. Randy Newman. I love LA, Randy Newman.
Yes.
So that was just random BSing going on with me and Jason Swank. We had no idea that Barry Harmon from the Babu Freaks would unearth something from Mad TV Season 4. Mad TV Season 4 featuring Will Sasso as Randy Newman composing music for the next Star Wars film. So here's a little highlight.
Obi-Wan's got his lights and he wants to help the rebels fight the Empire. Jedi Knights are ready to fight, and the base in space is run by Admiral Akbar. When George Lucas first called me up to write a couple of songs for a new Star Wars movie, I was tickled pink. Especially when he told me how much he liked the songs I did for Toy Story and A Bug's Life. Man, with all them lasers and phasers and Ewoks, man, I love Star Wars, boy. Star Wars? Oh, Star Wars! Star Wars! Did I get to see any of the movie? No. But I don't need to see a movie to write a song about it. Out in space, all over the place. Space is the place for Star Wars. Flying around, but ain't no ground. No ground around for no Star Wars.
That's genius.
Of course, in true transparency, my Randy Newman impression is just me doing Will Sasso, his impression of Randy Newman from Mad TV, which I remember watching back in the day.
I was never aware of
funny.
the impersonation. I was never aware of the bit. I never saw this before. Barry told me about it. I just thought it was funny to hear.
But
Randy
I didn't
Newman.
remember. I remember Will Sasso, funny guy on Mad TV all those years, occasionally popping up with a Randy Newman impression, but I don't recall him ever singing about Star Wars. So that I had no idea. So that's awesome that Barry remembered that. Jeez.
Yeah, really good stuff. As Randy Newman composes music for Star Wars.
Star Wars. All right, now we have to get a little bit serious here because this is tis the season. We've got, of course, all the things we look forward to gathering around together as families and breaking bread together and exchanging gifts. But as Star Wars fans, we acknowledge not Thanksgiving Day, not Christmas Day, not Hanukkah, not Kwanzaa. We recognize Life Day. And when did Life Day begin? Well, it began with the Star Wars holiday special that George Lucas to this day claims he had little to nothing to do with, as recent as the Boba Fett mini doc. But we have to acknowledge Star Wars Day and what it means, to Star Wars fans.
That's right. November 17th, 1978 was a day that will live in infamy. CBS aired the Star Wars holiday special for the only time ever. And I was there. I watched the thing. I watched the whole thing. And there I was, 9 years old. Even at 9, I knew that there was something really lacking from the holiday special. Something seemed a little off with Luke, Han, Chewie, and the gang. And
you wouldn't have been surprised if the real Randy Newman would have shown up at some point and during that hour. He would have sang about Star Wars.
Listen, when you got Art Carney and Harvey Korman and Diane Carroll, did people even notice Randy Newman at that point? Well, there he is. Oh, speaking of Diane Carroll, there's, everyone's favorite moment from the actual holiday special is when Itchy, Chewbacca's dad, his horny old man, sits down with a very early VR headset and watches a Diane Carroll music video that's, it might be bordering on soft porn at the very least.
Oh, God.
Punch it, Chewie.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yes. I can feel my creation. I'm getting your message. Are you getting mine? Oh, we are excited, aren't we?
See, I don't know how one would watch or write or film or edit or anything that scene and not think what we're all thinking right now. That has to be what it was.
Like, and, it was the 70s. There was a lot of disco roller skating going on back then. Everyone was, had their
diapers.
mind on
in those little, home from the hospital diapers at that point.
Well, I remember the 70s very well, and I often get nostalgic for it because it was a very down-to-earth time in this country, I think. We were still licking a lot of wounds, but it was just something really authentic about life in the 70s, let me tell you. And it was it was really the perfect launching pad for the Star Wars franchise was in the 70s. I don't know if it would be as successful if it came out any later or any earlier. It just seemed like the timing was perfect. But the Star Wars holiday special was far from perfect. Jason, have you ever watched it in its completion?
I have watched the entire thing from beginning to end, and every time I watch it, and of course that time that I sat down to watch the whole thing, Steve Sansweet's words echo in my brain.
It's an historical oddity. It's not very good. I mean, my problem with it is not so much its silliness, but I find it boring. This was an attempt to merge a very popular format at the time that was really starting to die out, which was variety shows, with the Star Wars universe. And it just, people, Harrison Ford and B. Arthur, Art Carney and Mark Hamill, the Jefferson Starship, Diane Carroll. It just made no sense.
It never sounded silly to me until you just said that, Steve.
but silly is one thing, juvenile is one thing, but its biggest sin to me is that it's boring, and I just can't sit through it.
That was Steve talking about the holiday special, and I kind of agree. I mean, there are some highlights. I mean, the animated short is a big highlight. I mean, the fact that you're seeing, the original actors, Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford, I mean, is incredible. Like the live action stuff with the original trilogy, or with the original actors, is like you feel like you're seeing something that you shouldn't be seeing, in a way. This is Han Solo circa 1978. I mean, So, but once you get over that, you realize that there's not much there, and all the stuff that happens with the Chewie's family and. It's just weird. It's just Art Carney.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and also B. Arthur.
What's she doing there?
Yeah. In the cantina. Now it is fun, as we've talked about, and it's been examined in some of the Star Wars Celebration panels about the cantina. The holiday special does give you kind of a different view on some of these great costumes and iconic masks and things like that. Get to see them literally in a different light. So for sort of Star Wars archivists, it's a great resource. The Richard Pryor special from the same era, I believe, the Richard Pryor show. So it's a great way to see different views and angles of all the different masks and things like that. So it has its use, but man, it's tough to get through. The most diehard Star Wars fan, it's tough to get through.
It's cringy and embarrassing too.
Yeah.
It's hard to watch, and it's also a sign of the times that the 70s were creating a lot of variety shows.
Oh, sure, yes,
and so that was a fairly common format.
Yep,
but to incorporate it into the Star Wars universe is still just a head scratcher that will befuddle us for the rest of our lives. And everyone says, "Wow, the cartoon was great. The cartoon was great." Cartoon's really not that great. I mean, it was neat because it's the debut of Boba Fett,
right?
But I mean, the story is ridiculous, and
I am Boba Fett.
It's just a shame that they didn't use that as a launching pad for a Saturday morning Star Wars cartoon, which should have happened. Well, I guess it did, really, with the Droids and Ewoks show. So
it did.
In essence, it was. But I'm thinking about a real Star Wars show with the characters and everything. I'm sure you're going to get Harrison Ford in the voice booth every week to work on his cartoon show. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Right. Harrison Ford, he doesn't like the holiday special. I have this brief clip here from him. This is Harrison Ford. He's talking to some Irish movie talk show, and they brought up the holiday special, and Harrison Ford had this to say.
It was in my contract. There was no known way to get out of it.
Have you seen it? Have you lately?
No, I was there, man.
I love that result. I was there, man. I saw the disaster happening firsthand. I'd rather not relive it. Thank you.
You got to figure that at some point somewhere, Mark Hamill, who is such a fan of everything, cheese and, vintage Hollywood, all that, must have been just elated. Like, I can't believe I'm at my own variety show. It's incredible. Look at me. I'm at a variety show.
Well, look at him. I mean, he's fresh off of facial reconstruction surgery after he rolled his car getting off on the highway.
Hey, by the way, when I was pulling the images for this week's show and I saw this, I wanted to ask you, and I can't remember if I've asked you this before, has Mark ever publicly spoken about that accident and the extent of the surgery that he underwent? I mean, I've heard so many interviews with Mark about Star Wars, and he was right in the midst of everything Star Wars when that accident occurred. I'm not aware of him ever talking about it, really.
Yeah, I've been listening to this audiobook lately. It's a newer one. It's a book that came out earlier in the year called Secrets of Star Wars. You're familiar with that, aren't you?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
Kyle Newman quotes in there, Dan Madsen, friends of ours. There is a segment in there about Mark's accident and does feature quotes from the time, him describing what happened and how it screwed him over. He was actually driving to a recording studio to record some pickup lines for a new print of Star Wars that George Lucas was working on. George continued to tweak the film after it already been released. Which is
Imagine
crazy.
that.
But he was doing that. George was so busy on the film, he didn't even realize it had come out.
I'm still making it.
You're still working on that?
I'm still making it.
It's already out. But so that's what happened to Mark, and that messed him up. I talked to Mark about the holiday special in Japan several years ago, and here's some highlights from that conversation. You appeared in the infamous holiday special, wearing quite a bit of mascara, I might add.
Did I have mascara on?
Well, it appeared you did. Maybe it was the lighting. Who knows?
I don't know.
Was that just a one-day gig?
I'm trying to remember. It might have been. I do remember opting out of a song because I said,
"Oh, good God,
I don't think Luke would sing." And Carrie has a good voice. I mean, she was going to sing anyway, but I don't want to bring up bad family, dirty linen, but I refused to do it. I read it and I said, I'm not doing this.
Yeah, right.
I'm not under contract. It's awful. It's not awful. It's just not Star Wars.
Right.
So I don't care. I love the Jefferson Starship. I love Beatrice Arthur and Art Carney. But what the heck does that have to do with our movie? And so I refused.
Yes.
And that's when I got a phone call, not from one assistant, from George himself, saying, please do this. And I said, well, why are you doing this? And he said, because there's such a great demand for toys, and the toys aren't ready for Christmas. There are no toys. That's where, remember those chits they gave out?
Of course I do.
Where you had to get the figures and all that?
Absolutely, yes.
He said, this is a personal favor to me because just to keep it fresh and keep it alive for, to reassure the merchandisers, to reassure 20th Century Fox. But he was giving me all these reasons, and I thought, well, since he personally called me, I'll do it. But them knowing that I wasn't real happy with what they came up with, my participation was fairly minimal.
Yeah.
I don't think I humiliated myself too much, but I haven't seen it since. I never saw it. No. I didn't watch it on TV, and I've never seen it.
Okay.
I should probably, because I don't know. I mean, if it's really, really horrible, because I don't want to be just mediocre. I want to be horrible. Like, I want to be in the worst movie ever. I want to be in Plan 9 from Outer Space.
Well, when it comes to holiday specials, I think you are. I think you are in the Plan 9 from Outer Space when it comes to holiday specials. But here's the thing that I love about that clip. And I'm such a kindred spirit to Mark Hamill because I love, I've got box sets of the Dean Martin Variety Show and the Bobby Darin Variety Show. I love that era. I love kitschy. I love corny. I love it. Nobody loves it more than Mark Hamill. I mean, the more cheese, the more corn, the more he likes it. This special is too much corn and too much cheese.
Even
Mark said, no, not doing it. But he was also bringing up a really good point, Jim, which is, look, format aside, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't help our movie.
That's right.
He's thinking of it from the context of promoting the film and all of that, and keeping that gravy train going. He's like, what does this have to do with this movie we made?
He was under contract, just like Harrison.
I was there,
so he
man.
couldn't get out of it.
I don't need to see it.
Yeah. Did you ever see it?
I was there, man.
You hear the PTSD coming off of Harrison. I mean, you hear it just oozing off of him. No, man. So over time, somehow, the holiday special has seeped into mainstream public consciousness.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, there was a period of time where it was never rerun again. It was not available on VHS.
No, you could only
wasn't until
get it like at comic book conventions, like you might find like bootlegs and things like that. Yeah.
And that didn't even start happening until the mid 90s, really. So it'd been this elusive thing. And people were asking like $50 for a VHS.
Yeah, that's right.
At comic book shops and conventions, like you say. A buddy of mine scored a copy and he ran off a dub for me. And that's how I eventually ended up seeing it for the first time in almost 20 years.
Wow.
And so during that 2-decade period, you would think back to the holiday special and just have little glimpses in your memory of it. You just really remembered it happening. You can't really believe it happened, but it happened. And you would have just loved to see it again because you weren't really sure if it was as bad as you remember it being.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so it was my buddy. He gave me a copy of the VHS, and I popped it in right away to watch it. Couldn't wait. And I'm like, this isn't as bad as I remember it being. It's worse. It's so much more worse. It's the worst. But I think now it has caught up to Mark Hamill a little bit, where it is this Plan 9 from outer space. People like to watch it to see how bad it is.
Yeah.
And if you're listening and you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. You can find the holiday special and a damn good version of it on YouTube too. I've had several copies over the years, and I rarely ever watch it. I mean, it's not anything that
it doesn't
I like
call to me at all.
There is a program called Riff Tracks, which is very similar to the Mystery Science Theater 3000, and they have an audio commentary for it. To me, that's the only way to watch the movie is by listening to these guys make jokes about it as it's happening.
Yeah.
That's the only way to watch the holiday special. But it has seeped into, pop culture consciousness. And even so much so like Disney, the Disney era has really flown that Life Day flag and the holiday special flag. I was just looking online. It's like Life Day celebration begins at Galaxy's Edge. And I said, are you serious? Are people still...
I think they're just trying to put the screws to George because they know how sensitive he is about it. Oh,
but
God.
I remember Bonnie Burton told us once that she said in a meeting at Lucasfilm when she was still there, this is when George still owned the company and everything, that she said in a meeting she really liked the holiday special and wished they would do more with it. And she said she practically got laughed out of the room for mentioning that. People didn't take her seriously. They thought she was a joke.
Well, it was a big do you remember, Jim, when the Star Wars Vault book came out? It was a big deal because there was a CD that was included with that, and on that CD was a good professional recording of Carrie Fisher singing the big song at the end. And that was the first, I think you and I called it the very first officially licensed piece of holiday special merchandise in a way.
Yes. And then the Boba Fett, that action figure was released. The color scheme, same color scheme as from the animated special. Then the animated special showed up on the Blu-ray, the Star Wars Blu-ray release as an Easter egg. Every once in a while, there'd be like a Topps trading card paying tribute to Life Day. But I mean, it was really a small, tiny trickle of acknowledgement of its existence from Lucasfilm or any of their licensees.
I would say probably the biggest contribution to modern Star Wars of the holiday special is that Boba Fett cartoon and the rifle that he had sitting upon top of the lizard that created sort of an aesthetic for the Mandalorian.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
And that's weird. But that's just kind of a deep dive Easter egg sort of thing. But I'm seeing like there's books about Life Day coming from Lucasfilm and stuff.
Oh boy, really?
Like I said, month-long celebrations at Galaxy's Edge. It's like, oh, okay, you guys have really lost your flipping minds. All the things you can do with Star Wars, and you're going to prioritize Life Day. You're probably right, Jason. It's just to piss off Lucas. I mean, it's just to piss him off. But it has shown up in pop culture from time to time. In the Glee special, they speak. The Glee, it wasn't a special. It was just an episode.
Yes.
An episode of that show Glee where one of the characters spoke very fondly of the holiday special and wanted to put on a live performance of it for the Glee High School.
The best Christmas show of all time is a Star Wars holiday special, shown only once in 1978, then locked away in the Lucasfilm vault like the precious jewel it is. Every fanboy in the galaxy knows it's completely awesome.
To hear somebody speak in such hyperbole about the holiday special really makes me want to blow chunks.
Because no real Star Wars fan thinks that way about the holiday special.
No,
it's just what writers write dialogue about what they think nerds think.
Right. It's just a curiosity. It's an oddity. It doesn't hold very high status with me as a Star Wars fan. No. It did much so in the years when it was elusive and unattainable. Then it became something of a legend.
Well, your imagination you thought it was something that it wasn't. Like, oh, they had deleted scenes in it from Star Wars. It is incredible. Right. Yeah, which they
did, even that I didn't know that. I thought that it was all brand new for the show. I mean, I was 9. What do you want from me? But I mean, it's obvious that they're outtakes from the film. But still, we're able to see them, so they're out of the vault, and that's probably the best thing about the holiday special. And hey, I like the B. Arthur Cantina sequence as much as anyone else, and the cartoon is fine. It's not that good. It's fine, but I mean, is a curiosity factor. It's definitely essential viewing for a Star Wars fan. I don't think it's essential for you to love it like that twerp from Glee, but I think it's essential that you at least see it so you can be involved in our conversations about it. Now, another show where they spoke very fondly of it, and no big surprise here, is The Big Bang Theory. And this is an episode that actually featured a surprise appearance from Mark Hamill.
Mr. Mark, when you were on the Wookiee home planet, how did you even understand what they were saying?
I don't remember ever being on a Wookiee home planet.
Actually, Luke was on the Wookiee home planet Kashyyyk in the holiday special when he helped Chewie get home to his wife.
Chewie had a wife?
Her name's Mala.
Wow, it's impressive.
Yeah.
It's impressive because he knows the trivia about the holiday special.
Right,
That's
right.
impressive.
That is the word that describes the holiday special better than any, Jim. Trivia. That's what the holiday special is. It is nothing more really than trivia.
But could you imagine a Star Wars fan feeling all puffed up and bloated about the fact that he knew that Chewbacca's wife is Mala?
No.
I mean, no. You know, we heard praise from Glee. We heard praise from The Big Bang Theory. Let's bring it all back down to earth with this clip from the Goldbergs featuring Rise of Skywalker star Jeff Garland, Michelle Redjwan's best pal, or bestie, Jeff Garland, as Adam Goldberg tries to explain the wonder of the holiday special to Jeff Garland. And Jeff pretty much hits the nail on the head.
You don't know Star Wars. This special is really for the true fan.
So the true fan wants to watch Dorothy from the Golden Girls flirt with an alien.
Okay, I admit it was an odd choice to have B. Arthur manage the cantina. let's just move on.
And what's the deal with Lumpy and Itchy?
Chewie's family had to be named something.
Lumpy and Itchy? Couldn't they have spent 15 more seconds on the names?
I don't know! And I don't know why Art Carney is a family friend or why Jefferson Starship is performing for the Empire.
Starship's in their name. That one actually makes sense to me.
Exactly. And that's exactly why that band was booked on the show. Is simply because they had the name Starship in their name. So that's so funny. So that's the Goldbergs. That's Jeff Garlin. And yeah, you know, it sounded like even Adam Goldberg himself was doubting the quality of the holiday special.
Yeah.
So, and there's a lot to doubt there. But here we are once again.
Yes.
Celebrating the anniversary of the holiday
43
special.
years. Wow.
The only reason we really talk about it is primarily because we have all that great audio, and it's always fun to listen to it at this time of year and remind ourselves that the holiday special does exist. I liked it when it was more underground as opposed to, you know, full month-long celebrations at Disneyland. But will we ever see it actually get a release? I say absolutely not, as long as George Lucas is still alive. The same goes for the original cuts of the original Star Wars trilogy.
Yeah.
We'll never see it, but I'll be damned.
Here's a question, Jim. Will our kids live to see it on Disney Plus? The Star Wars holiday special. Maybe we won't. But will they?
I still say no.
No.
So... no, I think it's one of those things that are just best left locked away in the vault forever and available to us via bootleg or YouTube if we're so desperate enough to search it out. We're going to wrap up the show. Unless you have any final thoughts.
No, I got nothing. I got nothing.
Some final flatulence.
Happy Life Day. That's all I got to say.
Happy.
Jason Swank is a little weenie.